I'm sure you're going to have something to say about this, but this is from the New York Post. They got an exclusive interview in regards to this, and we spoke about it when it happened, because it happened a year and a half ago at this point. So Navy SEAL training commander speaks out after scathing report on shattering candidate death. Navy Captain Brad Geary was on the path to becoming an admiral on February 4th, 2022, when he got earth-shattering news. One of his Navy SEAL candidates was found unresponsive hours after completing the training program's Hell Week. Seaman Kyle Mulen, 24, had just pushed himself through the most physically intense periods in the SEALs' famously arduous boot camp when fellow candidates discovered him in his room, blue in the face. Medics would later pronounce him dead at a hospital. And then the quote here is, "I'll never be able to take that weight off my shoulders," Geary said in an exclusive interview to the Post this week. "I've lost many teammates in my career, unfortunately too many, but this was the first one under my command." 3 months before Mulen's death, Geary had traveled to Washington, D.C. to accept the Navy's top honor for inspirational leadership, the Vice Admiral James Bond. Now, in the wake of a highly critical Navy investigation into Mulen's death, the SEAL officer faces scrutiny from the Navy, Congress, and the press, and plans to retire from the service without adding a star to his uniform. And he says, "You're grieving the death of a dream every day." And then he continues to say, "I know by coming forward with the press on this one, I'm committing a cultural faux pas that will put me out of the graces with my community, but I have to. I'm laying down my career for my cadre of candidates to be their voice and defend them because no one else is." So, he goes on to talk about this was obviously a mistake. And I think, you have people in the press who aren't used to this type of thing. I think for you and I, maybe we're, more used to me just reporting on this type of thing. However, I can tell you from my experience of just, working with veterans and special operations, military veterans over the past decade, for whatever reason, it's probably the water element. You do hear about more deaths in SEAL training than in Ranger training. And for whatever reason, the Ranger training deaths, like we reported on, were kind of like freak accidents, people getting struck by a tree. But like a drowning, people do wonder, how do you push someone to the limit without them getting to the point?
I think it's more hypothermia than drowning in water, which he got water pneumonia, which means he got bubbles on his lungs, or there's air in his, I forget how, water in his lungs, I'm sorry, from just training in cold water. And Ranger Battalion, that's how we lost 5 guys during jungle phase, was hypothermia. It wasn't, they were in the water a long time, but hypothermia overcame them, and another related death due to cold water. But I read that whole thing, and I thought it was somebody different. I thought they lost another one. I didn't know it was. No. And looking at that, I think that, my opinion, and if anybody wants my opinion or gives 2 shits about my opinion, it's both sides there. I remember that the reading through that, the Admiral went through saying, well, he said he didn't say this, but reports have that he did say that this generation is getting weaker. That's why they're having and I do believe there's some truth to that. I do. I really do. I think my generation is weaker than the World War II guys that went through hell. They went through a lot more hell than I did. But that being said, when a recruit or somebody going through an indoctrination process is starting to throw up blood, then you, as an instructor, you have the obligation. I don't give a shit what he's telling you, what that recruit is telling you, what that person that's going through that indoctrination is telling you. I could stay on it. No, you have that. You have to have the balls enough to grab the guy and say, "Nope, you're done. I'm sorry, you're out." Let me give you an example. Just this weekend, the first 15,
and can I just ask, when you say you're out, meaning
you're done,
you say
you're gone,
you're no longer going to be a SEAL.
You're not allowed. No, but you don't kick him out and say you can't try anymore. Say, we're going to pull you out the professional way. And I've seen instructors do this.
Well, because you can try out more than once. I know
exactly.
that. But for this time, you're basically ringing the bell involuntarily.
It's just called a recycle. You're recycling. And I've seen that happen in Ranger School. I've seen that happen in Ranger Indoctrination Program, which is now called RASP, Ranger Assessment Selection. And that's what good ones do. And it's hard to do that as an instructor, because you got a guy there that's pushing himself and he says, I can go. And it's your call, and you may make the wrong call and he may be recycled back, and you're like, well, you got to go an extra 3, but that's a call that as an instructor, you have to make. And to me, reading through that and hearing that he was throwing up blood, that doesn't make that call that hard. I'm like, dude, you're done. And what I was getting to is this weekend, we're going through an IMT course. For individual movement techniques is very tough. You have to do a lot of low crawl. I don't care. And guys saw this weekend, 15 meters of low crawling. makes you sweat more, if even not, it's harder than running 2 miles. It's hard. And I had a guy in the first 15 minutes of the course, and awesome dude. He pushed himself. We got him, but he was going down with it. He was going to be heat cast. I saw it. He's breathing hard. He can't do the drill. He's slowing down. I can see his muscles. Grabbed him. Get up. Get under the shade. Get your body armor off. Let's get water on you right now. You sit there until I say it's ready to go again. That's the way to handle it as an instructor. And it may be demeaning, or the person may take it as demeaning, or they may take it as, I can't accomplish this because this instructor won't let me. I don't give two shits. As an instructor, you have the responsibility to make sure that everybody's safe. You do. And you have to sometimes make that hard call to pull somebody from training and either start them over, let them not go through it, or just say, hey, you're done forever. But if it's the possibility that person might die, you have to have that wherewithal, that wisdom to call it and make that that balls pull yourself up by your nutsack and say, I got to make this call and get him out of there. But again, it's a double-edged sword, and because I honestly do believe that generations are getting weaker and weaker and weaker ever since World War I, ever since even before that. I mean, shit, since we had to kill our game with rocks and stones and then drag it through the woods, and then we are getting weaker. And that's when the command structure has to have, and they all do they're called risk assessments. They all have to do the risk assessments that start to change that sort of risk assessment of when do we pull a person out of training. I am certain that throwing up or spitting blood is a risk assessment indicator in BUDS or Ranger School or Ranger Indoctrination or going through CCT training, PCT, that when you're doing that, you get pulled out. And at the very least, you go to the emergency room and you get medical for 24 hours. And then an actual physician, a PA, physician assistant, or a surgeon makes that call if you can come back in. So I don't hate the Admiral. I don't hate the kid. I don't hate the instructors. Whatever they were getting told, they need to be trained a little bit better. I think it was just, again, it's hard training. People are going to die in it. Yeah, let's make some adjustments. But also as instructors, throwing up blood, I keep going back to that. That's a pretty damn good indicator to get somebody out of training. So yeah, I read that whole article. I loved that. Chewed it up, and I mean, yeah, I'm very passionate about it because I've seen it. I've seen guys almost go down. I almost had one go down this weekend just in my battle light course in the first 15 minutes, and the call was get him out. That's my first response was get up, get some shade, dump water on you. Let's get you some air conditioning. Let's get you back because you're going to go down.
But at the same time, Brett, I'll just say as an observer, I mean, these are two so totally different scenarios. Because I'm just thinking of when we covered the article. Well, I'm just thinking, for example, when we covered the article of them having to go through the gas training. What's it called? What type of gas?
You're just going through a gas. It's just.
But
CS
remember,
gas.
we were talking about a guy who was blacking out during that, and you, understandably, were like, "Hey, this is the toughest training in the world. That's going to happen." So something like that, this is like a much tougher call because something like that, you're like, I'm not going to pull that guy out. Spitting up blood, I am going to pull that guy out.
It's not. I would have done that. I would have pulled. I'll tell you right now. And those instructors can call me horseshit. I've trained guys through hard training. I did every GRS training thing that I did. There were SEALs, Rangers, Delta, S, and I was the instructor who had to make the call that they were going to stay there or not. It's not hard to make the call when you're put in that position, as long as you have a good set of parameters and you have common sense. I'm not knocking the instructors. I get it.
Yeah.
I get how hard it is to yank a guy out that's his livelihood. That may be his dream forever. But man, if it was a bruise or an ankle sprain, or even if he had a slight fracture on his leg, or I get the push, and I've seen guys push through broken ankles. I've seen guys do road marches. Luckily for me, I've been lucky enough that I've never had to, but I've seen guys push themselves through broken bones.
Yeah. I mean, according to David Goggins, his book, he's one of those guys.
And he may have, I don't know. We don't even need to get in David. I don't but the thing is, when it comes to internal stuff that you really don't know what the hell's going on in there, because in that throwing up blood is one of them, or internal bleeding, or that's something that you can't play around with, bro. You just can't push. And I guess I would assume, I'm going to assume that they had something in place that said, if there's an internal injury, evac him immediately and get him looked at by a surgeon. I could almost guarantee, because every time I trained and went through training, whether it was Ranger training, I wouldn't for any of that. That was always the case. That was the answer. Hey, you're not a doctor. Hey, broken bones and stuff like that, we'll get him up. We'll see how he's doing. We'll get him to emergency room if it's completely broken in half, or if he's got a sprained ankle, we know how to deal with it. We got ice, we got packs, we'll wrap it, we'll tape it up, and we'll lace his boots up real tight. But when we came to internal injuries, you do not, in fact, I remember a commander telling us, you do not make that call. That is the doctor's call. You get him up and you get him there for 24 hours. And most of these things here too, if they'll even in buds, I don't know, I'd love to have a new instructor on to tell us, but they have a medical protocol that they may even get him to the doc and get him emergency room for like 4 hours. So he gets a 4-hour break where they can make sure he's okay. And if the doc says he's cleared, they put him back into training, so he doesn't get recycled at all. But getting recycled at class is a hell of a lot better than being dead.
Yeah, of course.
And I've seen guys go down with heat casualties, and then when I went through winter phase of Ranger School, guys going down as cold weather casualties, which is hypothermia is, and they were huge in hypothermia because of the 5 deaths they had. And that was in the springtime that they had those 5 deaths due to hypothermia at Ranger School. They didn't play around with that. It was like, hey, if you're getting hypothermia, they'd pull us out. And so, yeah, I don't see it as being any different, because going through anything that is life-threatening, and the training is life-threatening. It's hard. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that hard. But the protocols for internal injuries or things that we can't handle, as far as a lot of spitting up blood is one, that a combat lifesaver or first responder really can't handle there on the spot. You got to pull them out and get them into the field. So I kind of see where the Admiral, and he may be taking a hit because he's in command, and you know that you always follow your highest chain of command. The success or failure of any mission falls on the highest chain of command, and in this case, because he was spitting up blood, it would be deemed a failure in my opinion. So, and I think he's handling it like he should. Hey, my fault. I'm taking responsibility for it, and I know he feels horrible for it. I don't have any animosity toward that Admiral. He's doing the right thing by saying, "Hey, it's on me, man. Let's fix this now."
Yeah.
And I don't like the civilian world getting in there and beating them up about it either, because the training is inherently dangerous. It's supposed to be.
Of course.
And people are going to die. And you're right. When it becomes water and hypothermia, there's more problems with water training, because of the hypothermic aspect, because of the water getting onto your lungs and you're getting that water pneumonia. Yeah.
And I just know over the years, I've reported on guys dying in pools. I've reported on all of it. And like I said, the only time I remember, at least, in the past 10 years of doing this, I could be wrong, of someone dying at Ranger School was that thing that happened maybe a year or two ago of the people getting hit by a tree. And like I said, that's a freak accident. There's nothing you can do about that.
And now you're right. So no, the waters, but I know, buddy, I maybe we can find it somewhere. I know there's risk assessment factors put into place that they have. We try to be safe. We don't want anybody dying in training.
Of course.
And so
it's not the objective.
Exactly. Never. So the protocols are there. I just don't know what those protocols are in buds, because I'm not a SEAL. I haven't been through buds, and I don't know what it currently is, and I'm sure it's changed, but I would say 99.9% there are protocols for these sort of situations. And since we don't know what those are and what the guys actually did, I can't say if those protocols are followed. But all I can say is that I've seen it and I've been in training where it's a call that I can't make, and I have to be that asshole that says, "You're done. I got to get you out of here." Because, buddy, it's not that you can't handle it. I know you're tougher than nails, but there's something internally wrong with you, and I need to get you out of here, because I don't want your death. I even said this. I don't want your death on my hands. Yeah. I said that. And that's how instructors have to be. They have to take the responsibility and be that asshole sometimes. And that's just how it goes, man.